everyone, it's Lisa from My Dreaming Soap. Welcome to my channel and thanks for dropping by. Today it's time for another soap in my continent series of soaps. And today I'm moving on to Asia. Now, just before I start this soap, one thing I just want to point out about this series that I'm trying to do, and the reason I'm doing this is because I was quite surprised and actually quite saddened by the amount of really negative comments that I got about my South America soap. Now, most of the people who did me comments were absolutely lovely, but there was a significant minority who actually posted some quite harsh comments saying they were offended that I'd done an America soap, not a North America soap. And there were even some comments that I had to remove. You know, some people, one person even told me that I was an, I don't like to swear, idiot if I thought that North America was just America. And I got someone else telling me that really I should try and get a bit of education before trying to tell other people what to do. So I must admit, it nearly made me stop doing the whole series, because the idea of this series is not to offend the people that I haven't chosen the country for. So, having said that, the idea of the series is I'm going around the continents, and from each continent I am choosing one country from a continent. So although it's a continent series, the soap will represent one of those countries. Like, for example, for Europe, I chose England in the series. Okay, so that's the idea. It is a country from a continent. I can't do an entire continent because the soaps would, well, they'd just be sort of more or less generic scenes to get representation of every single element of a continent in. Anyway, gosh, having said that, come on, let's make this soap, shall we? So, Asia. Now, I'm going to start off, we'll talk about more about the continent and what my image is for it. First of all, for Asia, I'm making a long moon embed. This may give you a clue to which country I'm actually picking up on in Asia. And in my oils here for my embed, I've got just my oils, then I've added some terracotta red mica and a little bit of neon yellow mica. And the idea of that is that I want my moon / sun to be quite a red colour, but I want it to be not pure red, a sort of slightly orangey tint to the red. So let's mix these micas up first. Now I've got a neon in here, and those are always pesky little suckers to get dispersed properly, so I will make sure I give this a really good blend to get that neon dispersed. Okay, so I think that's all right. It still looks really red, and that's the aim. I don't want it to actually turn into an orange. I just want the red to be on the red slight orange side rather than being a pinky red or anything. So those are my oils done. My lye and sodium lactate. Now for my fragrant soil today, I'm using fresh ginger and green tea, and this is from NI Candles in the UK. This is a gorgeous fragrance, and especially if you are in the UK, this is a great fragrance because it stays really strong even at the 3% that we're allowed to use it at. So you actually just wouldn't want any more than that in there, although the IFRA limit is higher than that. That's more than enough. It's a lovely fragrance. It doesn't discolour and it stays lovely and fluid. So it is a great fragrance to work with. So I'm just going to pop my measured amount into my oils for my sunset. Now for my tube, this is just a piece of plumbing pipe that I've cut to slightly longer than the length of my mould. I don't do anything fancy with mine. I just take some cling wrap. This is just a bit of old cling wrap I've used, as you can see, for various other things. I don't know, like covering a mould or wrapping soap dough or something. So I just put that over the end, and then I just get a band. Mine's just a hair tie, and I just wrap that round nice and tightly. Does need to be tight. And then for me, that's fine. I've never found the soap leaks out of it. And also, I don't line my pipes. So let's get this poured. I'm going to leave it at this trace. I could go a little bit thicker, but I want to make sure that it does flow in nicely and I don't get any air bubbles or anything. So I think that's going to have to be my little compromise there. Okay, so let's get this poured. It's really close to the camera. I'm going to just tip it down the side. Okay, so there's my pipe all filled. I am going to cover the top and then just leave that till tomorrow. Here we are the next day and we're going to make our main soap. So we're doing Mount Fuji for our Asia soap, and I'm going to do a sculpted layer technique. I've done quite a lot of moulds and embeds so far in this series, so I thought sculpted layers would be good. So I'm going to pour my first layer. Now I'm doing this soap upside down in the mould. And when you think about, do you do a soap upside down or the right way up when you're doing scraped or sculpted layers, think about the shape of what it is that you are scraping out. You always want to scrape so that the widest part is at the top. So for example, for a mountain, mountains are typically triangular shaped, sort of, aren't they? Thinner at the top, fatter at the bottom. If you tried to scrape a mountain the right way up, it would just never work because you could never get all the fat bit of the soap out through the thin pointy bit. Okay, so think about the shape that you're using. So this is going to be my sky area first, around the sun and the top of the mountain. Now I'm not going to do a blue sky. I'm going to do a sort of ombre sky where I want that sort of reddy orangey colour in at the top that we made our moon with. But then I'm going to do gold as sort of like a golden sky, because to me gold sort of shouts Asia quite well, and I thought that would look quite nice rather than the typical blue sky. So just doing it a little different. I am going to add in the fragrant soil for this layer straight into the mix here before I split it off. And again, I can afford to do that with this fragrant soil because it's very well behaved. And then also it saves me having to measure it out for each individual little part. Okay, just a little blend to make sure that's well dispersed. And then I want to split this out into the colours I need for my ombre effect. So I've just split out a little into my red that I'm using, again the same terracotta red that I used in that sun. And then I've got some golden shimmer from Mica Mama, one of my favourites. This is a really, really great mica because I've often found with this mica, and any of the ones called something shimmer from Mica Mama, is that when you've actually cut your soaps and you look at the surface of them, you can actually see this gold shimmering. Okay, whereas with a lot of micas, you sort of get that very flat colour, and they're not as great as when you use them in melt and pour. So yeah, these shimmer micas do actually have a little sparkly shimmer to them. Now that Fragrant Soil, as I expected it to, has thinned that batter right out again. It wasn't thick anyway, but you can see it's pretty watery now. So I'm just going to leave that for a while. I guess in theory you could go back in with your stick blender, but I never do. I just find I like to let them come to trace at their own time, and then you can control that trace much better, rather than if you stick blend, it hurries everything along and they stay sped up. So I'm just going to leave that, go and do some cleaning up or something, and then we'll pour that in a second. Okay, we've got to a trace now, so let's get this poured. And I just want a tiny weeny bit of the red at the top. So I'm doing a sort of ombre, just a very, very slight one. Just so there's a fraction of red at the top and then it goes into the gold. And I've just tilted my mould just on a tea towel at this point because I'm not doing a full ombre or anything. Just literally want to start it going in. And I do want to get through this red quite quickly because I do want the bulk of this colour to be the gold. So I'm trying to sort of use the red up fairly quickly. Okay, so I think this should be the last bit that's got any hint of the red left in it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, which you don't normally do for an ombre, is allow that to go down. Because I need to start thinking about getting that sun in. So giving that a little shimmy. And let's go and get that sun that we made. So here's our sun embed. Now I was a little bit worried about this because I made it about 4 o'clock last night. And I wanted to make the rest of the soap today, but not wait 24 hours. So I essentially unmoulded it when it was really still quite fresh. I basically unmoulded it about 10 o'clock this morning. And then what I'm doing is I'm grabbing some of that red that's gone behind the sun at the back, and I'm just dragging it over the front so they've got little bits of the red sky sort of either side of the embed, so that the red is sort of radiating out from the sun. Well, that's the idea anyway. Okay, so I think the best thing I can do now is get the rest of this golden sky poured in, and that will help hopefully keep that sun embed in its place. And I'm going to be careful with this because obviously everything's still very fluid, and I don't really want this gold to be sort of breaking through. Just going to lay it in very carefully. Now I'm going to have to fill this up quite a bit, and then I'm going to scrape it down, and that's fun because I'm going to use the excess of this to make some little extra soaps. So I've deliberately in this soap planned to do that, whereas normally I'd be more restrictive about the soap I use, and then I would scrape it up the sides to get the shape I want. But this one I do actually want to make some little extra soaps. So I'm just literally filling this up, and then I'll scrape off. And then I'm just going to check before I let this set up that my sun embed isn't pressing on my scraper. That's great. It isn't. So I know I'm going to be safe when I want to start scraping our mountain out. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that. That is going to take a little while to set up. As I said, it's a very fluid fragrant soil, so it could be 30 minutes, 40 minutes before that was set up. And I know a lot of people find that a complete pain. To me, it doesn't really bother me because I will often do a soap like this when I've got other things on. So therefore I'll do this, leave it setting up, go off and do something else, and then come back and scrape it. So it's actually quite a relaxed way of making a soap. I think we're now set up sufficiently. This has been about 30-40 minutes, as I thought it might be, for this to set up. So let's go in with my first scraper. Now for my first scrape, I'm just going to go in and just quickly take some of the bulk out before I start getting too fussy. And remember, as I said earlier, I actually want some of this for some smaller soaps, so that's why I haven't worried too much in trying to limit the amount that I used. What I did is I worked out how much I needed to get the soap to the highest point of the scraped area. Whereas if I was trying not to have excess soap, I would have cut that back as much as possible, and then just as this was setting up, I would have then sort of spread it around into the shape that I wanted. So let's get ready to pour this second layer of soap. Now I only need a smaller amount because this is going to be the snow cap on the mountain. But I'm also going to use some of this soap because I want some piping to do my cherry blossoms. So I'm going to take some of this off so this can be setting up to turn into some piping for when I bring that in the next layer. I'm going to bring my fragrant soil in now. As I said, this is a very well behaved fragrant soil, so me having it in my piping, I'm not worried about. Okay, I'm just going to pour off a little bit of this for my piping. And I've got a tiny little bit of that terracotta red colour in there, just mixed in some oil. I want my cherry blossoms to be a light pink, so by the time I've put some of this TD oil in there, it should hopefully get us to the colour that I need. Okay, so as you can see, not too much poured out. You'll be surprised when you do piping just how little you do actually need of your soap. And yeah, I think that's a nice pink for my cherry blossoms, so I think that will be good. And this I'm now just going to leave to start setting up, to turn into piping. And then the rest of this is going to be my snow caps. So let's go and pop that into our mould. Okay, so here we are. So I just need to now bring this in and add this to get our snow caps.
Tick tock, the clock keeps ticking. I don't know what I should do, and I wish you would be right here with me.
Okay, so again, just going to leave that to set up and then we'll scrape that.
We used to dance, but now I don't know where you are. I missed you so bad, won't you come back to me? I've got you in my head, you're all that I see. I've lost all my chances, I know that I am too late. I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you, wondering if you're thinking of.
So I've essentially left everything until my piping is almost at a piping consistency. It's still a little bit too fluid, but obviously I don't want it to get too thick. So now that that's ready, I can now start on my last layer. I'm going to leave those to get a little bit of a trace on them. I do want them quite fluid, and then this pretty well getting to the ideal consistency. I'm going to pop in a piping bag. My brown I'm going to put into a tiny weeny little squeeze bottle. Again, some of that left to the side, I'll top that up later. And then my grey, I am putting into a larger squeeze bottle, just because I want to be quite accurate with the grey whilst I'm doing the flowers. So what I'm going to try to do is create some cherry blossom as I go through. So I'm going to pop a little base of my soap in first, because I sort of want the cherry blossom at just one area of the soap. And with my piping, I'm just going to pipe in long strips. Yeah, that looks okay. Still a little bit soft, but I think that'll be okay. And I gradually want to sort of build up this picture of my cherry blossoms.
The ones that healing, they're all there because of you. It's my fault, I messed it up, and I should have treated you much better, so much better. I Miss you so bad, won't you come back to me? I've got you in my head, you're all that I see. I've lost all my chances, I know that I am too late. I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you, I'm thinking of you, wondering if you're thinking about me too. Now it's too late, I know it's too late. I'm out of time, but I'm still thinking of you. Tick tock, the clock keeps ticking. Don't know what I should do. I wish you would be right here with me.
So that's our soap all completed. So now I'm going to take this soap and cover it. It's too big, this loaf, to go in my oven to see pop, but I do have a heating pad, so I'm going to put it on the heating pad to let that push some heat through it. It's actually a pretty warm day here in the UK anyway, so it'd probably go through gel just by covering it up. Okay, so we'll do that and then we'll have a look at what it's like tomorrow. Okay, so here's our soap then. Now I did actually leave this overnight again, just really timing wise for when I had time available to cut it. I would have, with the piping, you know, a few hours, that sort of thing would have been fine, just to make sure you didn't smudge it too much. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got on the inside. It does smell really lovely. I do like this fragrance. Okay, so just hoping to get this lined up as well as I can so I don't chop any of those little suns. And let's have a look at what we've got. There we go. Oh, I'm really pleased with that. I was a bit worried about the cherry blossoms and I might get some air holes around them, because what I wanted with the cherry blossoms is I didn't bang the mould down because I didn't want to squash all the flowers. So I am really pleased with that. I think it looks great. The sun does show up nicely behind the mounting with my sort of sky red at the top. It's actually created a little, can you see that ring around the sun, almost as if there was the yellow batter around there. Now I'm trying to think, I did sort of scrape off a bit around the moon, but I think that's probably more something to do with gelling, not gelling, that maybe the rest of the soap gelled, but because that had already been set up as a soap, perhaps it didn't gel or something like that. I don't know if you can see, can you see, if I can get this to focus, can you see that tiny little ring round the sun? That's quite interesting, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it'll probably be on all of them. This is just a random soap with one of those rings on. Let's have a look at a couple more. I'm sure they're all going to be very similar. Yes, so there's that little ring again, and our little cherry blossoms going across the bottom. I'm very pleased with that. I do like that. I'm so pleased that I haven't got any sort of gaps and holes around those cherry blossoms. Okay, so that's our Asia soap, Mount Fuji there. So what have I got left to do? I have got South America and Antarctica. Oh, put my my teeth back in. South America and Antarctica. So hopefully we will see those soon. I do have plans for both of those. And then, as normal, I'll leave you with a couple of pictures of the finished soap. And just to let you know that there's a shop update tomorrow at 6 p.m. UK time. That's 11th of September 2021. This soap isn't for sale just yet, but there's lots of other soaps for sale, including the North America soap, plus lots of embed moulds and other soap making tools if you're a soap maker. So why not pop over to the shop and see if there's anything you fancy. I'll leave a link in the description box below, and I do ship worldwide. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you like the soap. Thanks very much for watching. Happy soaping!